Hello, I'm Keith Spera from NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. Welcome to Let's Talk. My guest today spends much of his time with his head not just in the clouds, but far above them. As an astrophysicist, he ponders the wonders of the universe. His lecture tours, TV shows, and best-selling books have made the mysteries of science not just understandable, but enjoyable for a vast audience. He kicks off his 2024 touring season at the Saenger Theater on January 23rd. It is my pleasure to welcome Neil deGrasse Tyson. Dr. Tyson, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. And please call me Neil.
I will do that. Please call me Keith. Yeah. Please call me Keith.
Okay. All right. I look forward to this. I've been to the Saenger Theater several times in the past, and this is yet another occasion. And I look forward to this. By the way, the word tour, I think, is misapplied in reference to me, only because while there's always some book that I have written, yes, when I go, quote, on tour, the intent is not to sell you anything. The theaters are given a list of talks that I can give, a dozen or so, and they pick one. And they say, we want you to talk on this subject, and then I go there and speak on that subject. So I'm really, when I visit cities, I'm a servant of people's curiosity more than trying to, cram something down your throat.
So unlike, say, when Earth, Wind, and Fire is coming, you don't get to pick, I want all the oldies, I want the new stuff. You give them a choice as to what they can actually...
Yeah. Never been analogized to Earth, Wind, and Fire before. That's good.
Does your backstage rider require a telescope?
No, just the green M&Ms or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I think I'm pretty low maintenance, actually, when I go to the theaters. Well, just simple food in the green room, and that's it. I have no ego to stoke for this. It's just the universe, which is bigger than everybody's ego at the end of the day.
Well, you spend enough time contemplating contemplating infinity. I guess that does make you. It's hard to have an ego in that situation. Where
exactly. And if you did have one, then you end up depressed at the end. So just shed the ego at the door, go in and take in the universe.
That's it.
And yeah, we're small in time and in space, but we're also a participant in the great unfolding of cosmic events, and that can be quite uplifting when seen from that perspective, a cosmic perspective.
Which you've written about, certainly. Before we even get to that, I got to say, there is no greater testament to your intellect than the fact that you get thousands of Americans to pay to listen to someone speak about science. I mean,
that is a crazy. So I will never grow accustomed to that. Let me just say. All right. Yes, I'm going to show up in a theater that seats thousands of people. And it's been sanctified by musicians and dancers and performers and actors and I'm a scientist, an interloper in their space, and people come to hear what I have to say about the universe, and that's a big responsibility. Because they're giving up. I forgot what day of the week this is on the 20. What day of the week
23rd,
is that?
Right.
On the 20. So whatever you might have otherwise been doing that evening, it was probably not your first thought. Let me go to a theater to hear an astrophysicist. of all the options we have these days. So I take it very seriously that people give of their time, their money, their energy to come and listen. Although I really think of them as participating, because we go through the content together, really. So you ever heard of this? You ever wondered that? Have you ever considered this? So it's intellectually interactive, if not physically interactive. Because you're not just sitting there while I lecture at you. You are there as a participant in the pace of information and enlightenment that I share. So I think about it very differently. So I'd go there and the tech staff, are you going to stand behind the podium the whole time? I said, what are you, crazy? This is not just I'm not, this is not a lecture in that sense. No, I'm all over the stage and I'm gesturing to the videos that I'm showing and slides and other information. So, no, it's a fully engaged evening for sure.
You're not crowd surfing, though.
Crowd surfing.
Yes, you're not having people carry you above their hands or anything like that. It's not quite that
right. I forgot that that's what that's called. Yes. As I fall back into the mosh pit.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. It's not quite that interactive.
No. Yes, that's correct. That's correct.
So the show that the Sanger picked, what's the theme of this one? What is going to be the thrust?
I think if my records show, because every theater takes a different subject. So let me just verify, like right now. I think it's the cosmic perspective. And let me just see. It's cosmic perspective, which is the most endearing and enduring of the topics that I speak on. And, and that very subject itself evolves. So it evolves at a rate so that every 5 years or so, the talk is basically completely different from the one I gave 5 years earlier, because I bring in other perspectives that we glean from the universe and apply them to emergent circumstances here on Earth. So it's all about how different your life on Earth looks when you consider it from space. A lot of the things we argue about over Thanksgiving dinner and other holiday dinners that seem so intense and so important. And so when you say, well, pause, maybe you're not really disagreeing as much as you think you are, or maybe not even at all. Right. When you look at it from this angle, from this perspective, based on what we know about the vastness of the universe and our place within it. So the cosmic perspective, I think, is the deepest and the most philosophically profound of the talks that I give.
And it's kind of related to the book, the Starry Messenger, your Starry Messenger book. I mean, isn't that?
Oh, yeah, actually, yeah. So I had, thanks for mentioning that. Just this month, it's being released in paperback. Starry Messenger, Cosmic Perspectives on Civilization. So it turns out that the cosmic perspective concept has split into two categories. One of them is that very title, where I'm coming at everything you think about and care about on Earth. Cosmic Perspectives on Civilization. The one I've been asked to give is a more broad cosmic perspective, which is less about what you're arguing during your holiday dinners, and just more about much deeper themes about our place in the universe, and there's the search for life, and what does that mean, and what implications would that have, and what do we know about the very atoms that comprise our body, and they're found elsewhere in the universe, so that we are not just figuratively, but literally stardust. Yeah. These are deep principles and ideas that basically change you. When we went to the moon back in the 60s and early 70s, we went to explore the moon, but then we looked over our shoulder and looked back, and we discovered Earth for the first time. And what do I mean by that? It's after we went to the moon, only then were these international constructs to say, we have to clean up the oceans, we have to clean up the air, we have to clean up. Earth was thought of as a holistic entity, rather than, of course there was pollution before then, but he said, oh, my stream is polluted in my backyard, let's clean that up. Or there's a factory let's clean that up. People were not thinking of Earth as a spaceship Earth, right? Hurtling through space alone in the darkness of the vacuum of the universe. And so what I've been asked for Sanger is to give the bigger cosmic perspective. I can come back next year and talk about cosmic perspective on civilization. Then I'm all up in your situation. People are fighting over race, religion, gender, and you're doing all of this. And I say, wait, pause. Have you considered what we might look like to an alien? All right. I think about this all the time. Here people are angry with each other because someone is born on the other side of a line in the sand, or someone worships these deities instead of these deities, or someone there's hatred sown into our thoughts and feelings because someone's skin color reflects sunlight differently from someone else's skin color. If aliens observe this, oh my gosh, they'd run back home and say, we've been to Earth. There's no sign of intelligent life.
None whatsoever. None whatsoever.
At all. At all. So there's a lot to draw from on that subject, yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that, I don't know if this is something you address in the talk, but I mean, it's always fascinated me that one of the intellectual impasses that both, the Big Bang Theory and people that believe in God kind of come to, it's the same intellectual impasse, and that is, where did God come from, or where did the matter and energy involved in the Big Bang come from? I mean, I don't think there's a way to actually answer either of those questions, is there?
No, there is. There is. So religious people I've spoken with have a perfectly comfortable answer when you ask, where did God come from? They say God always was. Okay, that's the very typical reply, and they're content in that answer. If you ask me, where did the Big Bang come from? I'll say, I don't know. We have top people working on it, okay? That's a frontier question. We have some ideas, actually, that the Big Bang might be part of a multiverse. There are very cogent reasons for thinking that a multiverse is a real sort of construct, but we don't have evidence for it yet. But we have theoretical we're theoretically prompted based on some other ideas that do work in the universe, quantum physics and general relativity, things like that. So the two different answers, one of them is, I don't know, we're working on it. The other one is, God always was. Now, what intrigues me is that if I say, I don't know, maybe the universe always was, they'll say, well, it had to have a beginning, it had to. So then I say, well, what's the beginning of your God? Well, it always was. And they're content with that, but not with it. So I'm fascinated by how people want to think about origin stories in what they know or what they believe.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, it's, and you could spend all day contemplating these questions, because when you get right down to it, they're essential to our existence as human beings. But
you said all day. You can spend your whole life.
Right. But on the other hand, you have to go to the grocery, and you have to get your kids to school and all this sort of stuff. So you have other things to accomplish in a day.
Right. Right.
I mean, I guess it's, in a million years, this conversation won't matter, but it matters right now. So
yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. If you had to choose, would you go to space on a spaceship built by Richard Branson, Elon Musk, or Jeff Bezos?
Oh, definitely be Elon.
Yeah.
Because, a very simple reason. In the billionaire boys space race, Bezos and Branson are sending you high into the atmosphere above what they call the Kármán line, where there's so few air molecules above the Kármán line. You can calculate where this would likely be. And there's an agreed upon standard for what that line is considered to be, although we have two different agreements. There's a European Kármán line and the American Kármán line. They're at different altitudes, believe it or not. But if you go above the Kármán line, then there's not enough atmosphere above your head to scatter sunlight and rendering the sky blue. Okay, so the sky is not blue. You go above the Kármán line in broad daylight and the stars come out, because the blue sky prevents you from seeing the stars that are there at all times.
Right.
So this came to be accepted as the definition of entering space, and I don't have a problem with that, but to now say, well, I'm an astronaut and I'm going places, you're not really going places. You're going up above the line and then falling back to Earth. And while you're falling back to Earth, before you re-enter the dense part of Earth's atmosphere, you're weightless for a few minutes. So you get to experience some of that. Meanwhile, Elon Musk is actually putting people into orbit around the Earth. And that's a start. But as an astrophysicist, I want to go places rather than just what is Earth orbit? It's boldly going where hundreds have gone before, right? So if you want to send me somewhere, send me to the moon, Mars, and beyond, then I'll sign up.
So
Sure.
would you go? Would you go?
If it's good streaming account.
So you would take the ride if you were offered a seat on an expedition to Mars? Would you take that seat?
Provided that whoever built the rocket, if it's Elon, I want evidence that he sent his mother on it first.
The mother test.
Then I'll have some confidence that maybe I won't die doing it. But yeah, send me somewhere, because the Bezos Branson, if Earth were a schoolroom globe, and I probably have one behind me here. Yeah. So, I mean, some are ingesting this show by only audio, but I have in my hand a schoolroom globe. Might be a foot across or so. And you can ask, how high up on a schoolroom globe did Bezos and Branson go? When they say they went into space, they like to say that. So they went the thickness of 2 dimes above a schoolroom globe.
Okay.
And I just can't, as an astrophysicist, I can't call that space. I'm just not, personally. Now, Elon Musk in orbit goes about a centimeter above Earth's surface to orbit. And that's the typical height of the space station, this sort of thing. And so, to me, that's still not really going places. And if Earth were the size of that schoolroom globe, the moon would be 30 feet away, well into the next room, and Mars would be a mile away. So a journey to the moon and Mars is way different than remaining attached to Earth. So, yeah, I have to wait until they've got missions 2 places before I sign up.
Well, and it's interesting with a guy like Elon Musk, you need, I think, a certain amount of hubris to push humanity forward, but, as evidenced by the Titan submersible that, imploded on the way to the Titanic, you've got to balance that with common sense and taking care of all the, dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's in technology.
Yeah, the trips you take into space, keep in mind that the private enterprise, other than actually making things more efficient, cheaper, become routine, that's what you would expect private enterprise to do. That being said, if Elon goes to the moon, well, we've already been to the moon, right? So let me take a step back and declare that private enterprise will never supplant NASA in its mission statement, because NASA's mission is to explore. One of its missions is to explore. And there's no return on investment when you are on the frontier exploring. So government pays for that. Once we learn, well, this is what it costs to get there, here are the risks, the dangers, here are the engineering plans, then private enterprise can come in afterwards and possibly make a buck on it. But private enterprise is not. So here, Elon says he wants to go to Mars. So what does that venture capitalist meeting look like? Okay?
Right.
Invites them in, say, oh, Elon, what do you want to do? I want to put humans on Mars. Well, all right, is it expensive? Yes. How much? Maybe $1 trillion. Is it dangerous? Yes. Will people die? Probably. What's the return on investment? I can't think of one. That's a 3-minute meeting. That's 3 minutes. All right. Whereas with the government, what do you want to do? We want to go to Mars. Why? Well, China has some overtures so geopolitically, we think it's in our best interest. That does not involve venture capitalists. We can make geopolitical decisions completely independent of those priorities that a for-profit business would have to consider.
Right.
And so what could happen, what will likely happen, I think, is the United States says we want to go to Mars, again, for whatever geopolitical reasons. Oh, but we don't have a rocket to do that. And Elon says, I have a rocket. And so we pay for Elon's rocket. So maybe Elon's rocket is the first rocket to land humans on Mars, but it was not out of any business model that did not involve taxpayers. All right? Just consider that reality there.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see how that plays out. If you're just tuning in, I'm talking to astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson here. In the last 6 or so minutes we've got left, speaking of NASA, the James Webb Telescope certainly, I think, has lived up to expectations thus far.
Yes, it is all that. It is all that.
It is all that. It is all that. And there is another telescope, I think, that is in the works. It's going to be a project in conjunction with the European Space Agency to explore dark energy, I think, right? Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah. So that's right. So maybe the public hadn't known before, if you otherwise figured out now, that when we design telescopes, they're specially tuned to answer very key questions that bedevil us at the time of the funding and the engineering and the construction and the deployment. And so, by the way, ideally, the telescope would be good for things beyond that stated purpose. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, then it's a one-off, right? You don't really want that. So in the James Webb Telescope, for example, it was conceived to be sensitive to infrared light. Why? Because birthed galaxies at the early universe emit copious amounts of ultraviolet light. Well, how are you going to see ultraviolet light if you're sensitive to infrared? Because since then, the universe has been expanding, and it has stretched the ultraviolet wavelengths of light and turned them into infrared. So we have a telescope exquisitely tuned to look at galaxies, the light from galaxies after the influence of the expanding universe on it. And it is behaving magnificently in that space, literal and figurative space. Oh, by the way, infrared light also allows you to peer into gas clouds nearby, because they're not blocked by the gas and the dust that is obscuring what's happening inside. What's happening inside the gas cloud? Stars are being born. So the curious fact about the James Webb is that it sees the birth of galaxies in the early universe and the birth of stars nearby. So you can double dip on its abilities. So then there was the Event Horizon Telescope, mm-hmm. which is a consortium of telescopes that gave us our first picture of a black hole. Oh my gosh! Yeah. So the other frontiers, we still don't understand dark matter and dark energy. These are two major areas of ignorance that, again, we have top people working on it. And you can theorize about it, but you also want good data. And so there's a frontier of telescopes being conceived and designed to give us the best available data in those areas of ignorance.
We've just got 3 minutes left here. Real quick, what's been the most exciting recent discovery for you?
Oh, yeah, I don't think about it that way. Mm-hmm. I think about what questions we have yet to ask that we don't know to ask because it's waiting for a new discovery to put us in another place to stand to say, oh my gosh, here's a question I didn't even think to ask. Because in the face of this new information and this new enlightenment, I have another question I want to pose. So I see all discoveries as just building this landscape on which we stand, empowering us to ask the next generation of questions. But if I would, so that's kind of a cop-out answer to your very clean and succinct question. I would say that I'm eager to know if there's life elsewhere in our own backyard, below the surface of Mars, in the oceans of Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, kept warm by the stress of Jupiter's gravity. And the ocean of liquid water has been liquid for 1 billion years. And it's way out there in the solar system. We have missions to go there to ask those very questions. So I'm excited about those prospects.
Basically, as quickly as knowledge changes, I should pretty much throw away my 30-year-old college astronomy textbook that's in my attic, right? I mean, it's irrelevant.
No, I bet some of it is good, but depending on how current the textbook claimed to be, current knowledge gets improved. But what more likely happens is 30 years ago, we thought this set of questions were really important. And so we lead with those. Then 10 years later, it's like, okay, we got that, but here's some better questions. This is precisely the point I was making a minute ago. You look at it and say, this is kind of trivial content here. We now want to know, is there a multiverse? All right? The word multiverse would not have appeared in your 30-year-old textbook, I assure you.
No, I think that textbook actually still says that the sun revolves around the Earth. So it's a little out of date.
So you are that old. You don't show it. You look young and vibrant. Yes.
Thank you. I got to say, I feel smarter after this conversation. And it is, again, the way you pose questions. It's all about the question to a large degree. It's not even about the answer. It's about the question that leads to the next question.
Not even about the answers. Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, answers are helpful, but true curiosity is never quenched by answers. True curiosity is fed by answers. You say, well, really? But how about this other thing? Right? It's just a new place to stand to ask deeper and more profound questions than you ever previously imagined for yourself.
Well, there you go. Well, all right. Well, I look forward to hearing you talk about these things and more January 23rd at the Center.
Oh, you get a free ticket because you're interviewing me for this? Is that how that works?
I don't know. I'll make a call, though.
Yeah. No, you got to know people to get a ticket.
Exactly,
you got to know.
Exactly. Well, this has been
about half the time they sell out. So if that matters to you, to people listening, other times it's like 90% full. I'm very flattered and honored that there's that level of interest. But yeah, it's been a while since I've been in NOLA. I look forward to returning.
Well, great. Well, thank you for joining me today. It's been a pleasure. And thanks to everyone for tuning in. I'm Keith Spera. Let's talk again next week.